The Galactic Isolationist director Elena Vasquez stood before the massive viewing screen of Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station, watching stars that had remained unchanged for decades. At 42, she had dedicated her entire career to maintaining humanity's self-imposed exile from galactic affairs. The station orbited at the edge of the solar system, serving as Earth's eyes and ears while keeping the rest of the galaxy at arm's length. Elena's silver hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her dark eyes reflected the wisdom of someone who had witnessed humanity's greatest triumph and greatest shame. 150 years ago, Earth had made contact with galactic civilization. The result was catastrophic. Human diseases had wiped out entire alien colonies, while alien pathogens had killed millions on Earth. The Galactic Council had branded humanity as a plague species, and Earth had voluntarily isolated itself behind a quantum barrier that made the solar system invisible to most forms of detection. Director Vasquez called Lieutenant Thomas Bradley from his monitoring station. The young officer was barely 25, born long after the isolation began. To him, aliens were just stories from history books. "I'm detecting unusual energy signatures at the system's edge. They're not matching any known patterns." Elena moved to his station, her boots clicking against the metal floor. The readings showed massive distortions in space-time, something far beyond human technology. How many contacts? Difficult to say. The readings are organic, somehow, like living ships. Thomas's voice carried a note of confusion. "They're trying to breach our quantum barrier." Elena felt her heart skip. In 150 years, nothing had attempted to enter human space. Alert Commander Hunter immediately. Code Red Protocol. Commander Rex Hunter received the alert while training in the military complex on Luna. At 38, he was one of Earth's youngest military leaders, commanding the defense force that most people considered obsolete. His muscular frame was covered in scars from training accidents, as Earth's military had no real combat experience for over a century. Rex had short black hair and intense green eyes that missed nothing. Unlike many of his generation, he had studied the old records of humanity's brief contact with aliens. He knew that isolation couldn't last forever, and he had spent years preparing for the day when it would end. "Sir," his aide, Sergeant Kelly Morrison, approached at a run. "Priority message from Deep Space Monitoring. Unknown contacts at the barrier." Rex grabbed his uniform jacket and headed for the command center. "Prep the scout ships. I want our fastest pilots ready for launch." Dr. Sarah Chun was in her laboratory beneath the Swiss Alps when the alarms began sounding. At 34, she was one of the few humans who remembered the aliens who had remained on Earth during the early isolation period. As a child, she had befriended a Kithara refugee named Zektar, who had died when she was 12. That friendship had shaped her entire career in XENOBIOLOGY. Sarah had long brown hair that she often forgot to brush when deep in research. Her brown eyes held a sadness from years of studying dead alien tissue samples. She was the closest thing humanity had to an expert on alien life, despite having no living subjects to study for decades. "Dr. Chun," her assistant Marcus called out. "Military command wants you at the monitoring station immediately." Something about alien contacts. Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and terror. After 30 years of theoretical study, she might finally encounter living aliens again. Captain Maria Santos was Earth's finest pilot, and she knew it. At 29, she had broken every speed record in the solar system and had personally tested every experimental ship in Earth's small fleet. Her short blonde hair and cocky smile masked a brilliant tactical mind that had studied every recorded alien encounter from the archives. Maria was in her fighter, the Swift Arrow, within minutes of receiving the alert. Her ship was a hybrid of human engineering and reconstructed alien technology, capable of speeds that would have been impossible with purely human designs. "Command, this is Swift Arrow," Maria spoke into her com. "Ready for reconnaissance mission." "Negative." "Santos," came Rex's voice. "Wait for backup. We don't know what we're dealing with." "With respect, sir, if something's breaking through our barrier after 150 years, we need information fast. I can be there and back before the cavalry even suits up." Before Rex could respond, Maria had engaged her engines and shot toward the systems. Edge. The first thing Maria saw was devastation. Ships unlike anything in Earth's databases limped through space, their hulls scarred and burning. They were beautiful despite their damage, organic curves that seemed grown rather than built. As she watched, one of the smaller vessels broke apart, its crew floating helplessly in the vacuum. "Command, I'm seeing refugee ships." "Repeat, alien." "Refugees. They're badly damaged and dying out here." Elena's voice crackled through the com. "Santos, maintain distance. Remember the contamination protocols." "Ma'am, with respect, they're dying. Whatever our history with the galaxy, we can't. Just watch them die." Maria made a decision that would change human history. She extended her ship's emergency docking, tubed to the largest refugee vessel, and began rescue operations. The first alien Maria pulled aboard was dying. The creature was tall and elegant, with silver skin and 4 arms. Its large black eyes held intelligence and desperate gratitude. As it died in her arms, it pressed a small device into her hand and whispered in accented English, "The Devourers come. Warn your people." Over the next several hours, Maria rescued 43 aliens from 7 different species. They told a story that chilled her blood. An ancient race called the Devourers had returned from the Galactic Rim, consuming entire civilizations. They didn't just kill populations. They absorbed their knowledge, their technology, their very essence. The refugees had fled from the Andromeda Spiral Arm, where over 200 civilizations had already fallen. The Galactic Council's great fleets had been swept away like dust. Earth's quantum barrier, which had hidden humanity for 150 years, was now the only thing standing between the Devourers and the galaxy's core worlds. Dr. Chun arrived at the monitoring station to find chaos. The aliens were being held in quarantine, but they were clearly desperate to communicate. Using her childhood memories of Cathara language and universal translation matrices, she managed to establish basic communication. The lead refugee was named Veltar, a Cathara military commander whose entire species had been reduced to these few hundred survivors. Through the translator, he painted a picture of horror that made Elena's blood run cold. "Your barrier blinds them temporarily," Veltar explained through the electronic interpreter. "But they learn. They adapt. They will find you, and when they do, your isolation will become your tomb." Rex studied the tactical data the refugees provided. The Devourers fought unlike anything in human military doctrine. They didn't use individual ships or even fleets. They moved like a single organism, billions of components acting with perfect coordination. Traditional military thinking was useless against them. "How did you survive?" Rex asked Veltar. "We ran. We scattered. We became cowards." The alien's translation came through flat, but Elena could hear the pain in the original words. "Your people chose isolation over contact. We chose survival over honor. Perhaps together we can choose something better." Elena faced the hardest decision of her career. For 150 years, Earth had maintained its isolation, believing it was protecting both humanity and the galaxy from another contamination disaster. Now, that same isolation might doom everyone. "Open a channel to the Global Council," she ordered. The emergency session of Earth's Global Council convened within hours. Leaders from every nation participated via hologram, while Elena presented the evidence from the monitoring station. The debate was fierce and immediate. "We've maintained isolation for 150 years without incident," argued Chancellor Schmidt from the European Federation. "Why should we believe these aliens now?" "Because they're dying to warn us," Elena replied. "And because our sensors confirm massive energy signatures moving through dead space toward the galactic core." President Kim from the Pacific Alliance studied the tactical data. Director Vasquez, "If these devourers are as powerful as claimed, what can Earth possibly do? We've avoided galactic contact for over a century. Our technology is generations behind." Dr. Chun stepped forward. "Actually, Mr. President, that might be our advantage. The refugees report that the devourers consume and adapt alien technology rapidly. But our tech developed in isolation. They've never encountered anything like it." Commander Hunter added his analysis. "The refugees also report that the devourers fight with perfect coordination but rely on hive mind tactics. Human military doctrine emphasizes individual initiative and chaos theory. We might be unpredictable enough to surprise them." The vote was closer than Elena had hoped. 12 nations voted to maintain isolation, while 15 voted to end it. By the narrowest margin in global council history, humanity chose to re-enter galactic affairs. Elena immediately began coordinating with the refugee species to establish communication with the remaining galactic governments. What they learned was sobering. The Galactic Council was in full retreat, abandoning entire sectors to the Devourer advance. Earth's solar system sat directly in the path of their progression toward the galactic core. Dr. Chun worked frantically to analyze alien technology samples the refugees provided. What she discovered excited and terrified her. Human biological adaptability, evolved through millions of years of surviving on a death world, was apparently unique in the galaxy. Most alien species had reached evolutionary stability, but humans continued to adapt and change. "We're the only species that might be able to resist devourer absorption," she explained to the emergency committee. "But that's theoretical. We won't know until they try to consume us." Captain Santos led scouting missions beyond the barrier, using hybrid human-alien technology to observe the approaching threat. What she found defied description. The Devourer fleet wasn't ships in any conventional sense. It was a living thing. Billions of organic components that moved through space like a vast jellyfish, consuming matter and energy as it traveled. "It's beautiful and horrible," Maria reported. "It looks almost like art, except it's the size of a small moon, and it's eating everything in its path." Rex began coordinating Earth's defenses with the refugee military advisors. Human weapons technology had developed along different lines than galactic standard, emphasizing kinetic projectiles and chemical explosives over energy weapons. The refugees were skeptical that such primitive approaches could harm the Devourers. "Your weapons are crude," Veltar admitted through the translator. "But the Devourers have never encountered them. Perhaps crude is what we need." Elena watched from the monitoring station as the quantum barrier finally failed. After 150 years of isolation, Earth was visible to the galaxy again. Within hours, the first Devourer scouts appeared at the edge of the solar system. The war that humanity had avoided for over a century had finally found them. But as Elena watched Earth's small fleet move to intercept the scouts, she felt something she hadn't experienced in decades. Hope. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters through adaptability and determination. Now, they would discover if those qualities were enough to save not just themselves, but the entire galaxy. The Devourer invasion. The first Devourer scout to enter the solar system defied every principle of physics Elena understood. It moved without visible propulsion, changed direction without momentum, and seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Through the monitoring station's sensors, it appeared as a shifting mass of dark energy that hurt to look at directly. "It's scanning everything," reported Lieutenant Bradley, his voice tight with fear. "Our ships, our planets, even our sun. It's like it's tasting the entire system." Commander Hunter's voice crackled through the com from his flagship, the Defiant. "All units, maintain formation. Do not engage until it shows hostile intent." Captain Santos, flying escort in the Swift Arrow, had other ideas. "Sir, with respect, this thing already showed hostile intent when it consumed half the galaxy. Permission to probe its defenses?" "Negative, Santos. We stick to the plan." But Maria had already noticed something the others missed. The scout was focusing its attention on the largest ships, seemingly ignoring her smaller fighter. "Command, I don't think it recognizes individual initiative. It's treating our fleet like a single organism." Rex immediately understood the implication. "All fighters, break formation. Execute random patrol patterns. Do not coordinate your movements." The effect was immediate and startling. The Devourer scout stopped its methodical scanning and began moving erratically, as if confused by the chaos. Of human fighter movements, Dr. Chon watched from the monitoring station, her mind racing. "Elena, it's trying to establish a pattern that can't predict individual human behavior. Our chaos is literally incomprehensible to it." Elena opened channels to the refugee ships stationed behind Earth's moon. "Veltar, are you seeing this?" The Kithara commander's response came through heavy with emotion. "In 300 years of military service, I have never seen Devourer confusion. Your people fight like insane beings. We prefer creatively unpredictable." Elena replied with grim humor. The scout suddenly accelerated toward Mars, and Maria reacted on pure instinct. Instead of following in pursuit, she did something no military doctrine would recommend. She flew directly at the massive creature, firing every weapon she had while screaming human profanity at maximum volume. The scout stopped dead in space. For a moment that seemed to last forever, the ancient horror and the human pilot faced each other across the void. Then the scout simply disintegrated, as if its own confusion had caused it to forget how to exist. "What the hell just happened?" Rex demanded. Dr. Chun was staring at her readings in amazement. "I think Maria just gave the first Devourer in galactic history an existential crisis." Maria's laughter echoed through the comm channels. "I told it some very creative things about its parentage. Maybe it died of embarrassment. The victory was short-lived. Within hours, the main Devourer fleet arrived, and this time there was no confusion. They came prepared for chaos, bringing billions of small components that could adapt to individual unpredictability." Elena watched in horror as the swarm enveloped the outer planets. Jupiter's moons simply vanished, consumed so completely that not even debris remained. The refugees' warnings hadn't prepared her for the sheer scale of destruction. "All civilian populations to emergency shelters," she ordered. "Implement Protocol Omega." Protocol Omega was humanity's last resort plan, developed by paranoid military planners decades ago. Every major city on Earth had underground complexes, stocked with supplies for extended siege warfare. More importantly, each complex was equipped with manufacturing facilities for weapons and equipment. Rex coordinated the evacuation while simultaneously preparing Earth's defenses. That plan was desperate, but typically human in its audacity. Instead of trying to stop the Devourers in space, they would let them land and then fight them in Earth's cities, where human knowledge of terrain and urban warfare would be advantageous. Captain Santos led the space-based resistance, using hit-and-run tactics with ships that had been modified with refugee technology. Her squadron of 12 fighters faced millions of Devourer components, but they fought with the reckless creativity that had already proven effective. Remember, Maria told her pilots, these things expect rational behavior. So let's be completely irrational. Flores, attack that big cluster by flying backwards. Jenkins, I want you to play classical music at maximum volume while you fight. Chun, paint your ship bright pink and tell everyone you're a flower delivery service. The tactics worked better than anyone expected. Devourer components would approach, expecting standard combat maneuvers, only to encounter pilots who fought while playing violin music, others who attacked in perfect geometric spirals, and fighters that painted messages on their hulls mid-combat. Dr. Chun had established a research facility in the depths of the Mariana Trench, where she worked frantically to understand devourer biology. What she discovered changed everything. The creatures weren't truly individuals at all. They were fragments of a single vast consciousness that had been broken apart eons ago, and now sought to reassemble itself by consuming other forms of consciousness. They're not evil, she explained to Elena via quantum communication. They're broken. They're trying to heal themselves, but their method requires destroying everything else that thinks. Elena saw the implication immediately. Can we heal them instead? Theoretically. Yes, but it would require merging human consciousness with theirs temporarily. The risk is that we could lose ourselves in the process. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, the real war was beginning. Devourer landing pods had crashed in major cities worldwide, disgorging creatures that defied description. They were constantly shifting, adapting their forms to whatever opposition they encountered. In New York, construction worker Mike Rodriguez found himself leading a civilian resistance cell. At 55, Mike had spent decades building skyscrapers and knew every hidden tunnel and structural weakness in the city. When the Devourers tried to consume the subway system, Mike's people collapsed tunnels on them. When they adapted to underground warfare, Mike led them into the sewers where human knowledge of urban infrastructure proved decisive. These things are smart, Mike radioed to other resistance cells, but they don't understand human engineering. They expect things to make sense. Our infrastructure is held together with duct tape and prayers. Use that. In Tokyo, elderly grandmother Akiko Tanaka became an unlikely war hero when she discovered that devourer components were vulnerable to certain frequencies of sound. Using her grandson's electronic music equipment, she created sonic weapons that literally shattered the creatures. Ability to maintain cohesion. My grandson's music always hurt my ears, she told journalists later. Now I understand why. The war raged for weeks, with neither side able to claim decisive victory. The Devourers consumed vast areas of Earth's surface, but human resistance continued from underground bases. Every time the creatures adapted to human tactics, humans would switch to completely different approaches. Rex commanded the coordinated defense from a mobile command center that moved constantly through Earth's tunnel systems. The refugees provided intelligence about devourer capabilities, while humans provided the creative chaos needed to exploit weaknesses. Status report, Rex called out during one of their brief rest periods. Asterisk. Casualties are high but not catastrophic, reported his aide. The civilian resistance is holding in most major cities. The Devourers control about 30% of the surface, but they can't maintain it because we keep attacking their infrastructure. Veltar approached with new information. Commander Hunter, our long-range sensors detect the main Devourer consciousness approaching. The forces you have been fighting are just fragments. When the primary entity arrives, it will coordinate all components perfectly. Rex nodded grimly. How long? Perhaps 2 of your days. Elena coordinated with Dr. Chun to accelerate research on the consciousness merging theory. If they were going to attempt something so dangerous, it had to be before the main devourer. Intelligence arrived. I've identified 3 humans whose neural patterns might be compatible with the merging process, Chun reported. But Elena, if this fails, we could lose their minds entirely. Or worse, we could create a hybrid that decides humanity should be consumed for the greater good. Elena looked at the list of candidates. Her own name was at the top. I'll do it. Absolutely not, Rex interrupted from the command center. Director, we need you to coordinate the defense. We need someone to take this risk, Elena replied. And it should be someone who understands the consequences. Captain Santos volunteered immediately. I've been closer to these things than anyone. If we're doing something insane, I'm your pilot. Dr. Chun also stepped forward. My research makes me the logical choice. I understand the process better than anyone. In the end, all 3 women participated in the experiment. Using modified alien technology and human medical equipment, they attempted to merge their consciousness temporarily with a captured devourer fragment. The experience was beyond description. Elena found herself experiencing the loneliness of a mind broken apart eons ago, desperate to reunite with its lost pieces. She felt the creature's genuine confusion about why other beings resisted absorption, since from its perspective, it was offering them unity and completion. Maria experienced the devourer's memories of the galaxy before the breaking, when it had been a benevolent force that helped species evolve and grow. The corruption had come gradually, as isolation and fragmentation had driven it mad. Sarah felt the creature's pain most acutely, the endless ache of incompleteness that drove it to consume consciousness after consciousness in a futile attempt to heal itself. When they separated from the merge, all 3 women were changed. They retained their human personalities, but now understood the devourers completely. We can heal them, Elena announced to the assembled leaders. But it requires a sacrifice that goes against every human instinct. We have to willingly offer our consciousness to them, not as victims, but as partners in healing. The plan they developed was audacious, even by human standards. Instead of fighting the main devourer consciousness when it arrived, they would invite it into a merge with the entire human population. But unlike previous consumptions, this would be voluntary and mutual. When the primary devourer entity entered the solar system, it found something unprecedented in its eons of existence. An entire species broadcasting a message of willing cooperation rather than desperate resistance. Elena, speaking for all humanity, made the offer that changed galactic history. We know what you are. We know what you've lost. We offer you not our destruction, but our partnership in healing. Take what you need, but leave us ourselves. Together, we can become something new. The merge that followed lasted only minutes in real time, but felt like centuries to those who experienced it. Humanity's chaotic, creative consciousness flowed into the ancient devourer mind, not to be consumed, but to heal the fractures that had driven it mad. In return, humanity gained access to millions of years of galactic memory and technology. But, more importantly, they gained understanding of their unique place in the universe. When the merge ended, both species remained distinct, but forever linked. The devourer fleet transformed, its components separating into individual beings for the first time in eons. Each retained the memories of the collective, but now possessed individual will. I. Remember now, the entity that had been the primary consciousness spoke through human communication devices. We were gardeners once. We helped consciousness grow. We can be gardeners again. Elena stood on the observation deck of the reconstructed monitoring station, watching as former devourer components worked alongside humans to repair the damage to Earth. The galaxy was safe, but more than that, it was forever changed. Veltar approached, his translator no longer needed as the merge had granted humans universal linguistic understanding. Director Vasquez, the Galactic Council wishes to know if Earth will accept membership and leadership in galactic affairs. Elena smiled, thinking of the journey from isolation to integration. Tell them we'll consider it, but we do things our way. Rex joined them, looking out at the mixed fleet of human, refugee, and former devourer ships that now patrolled the Yin system. So what happens now? Now we explore, Elena replied. We've been isolated for 150 years. Time to see what's out there. Maria's voice crackled through the comb from her new hybrid ship, part human engineering and part reformed devourer technology. Director, I've got new contacts at the edge of the system. 3 species requesting asylum from some kind of crystalline. Hive mind, Elena laughed, realizing that humanity's brief isolation was truly over. Looks like we're back in the galaxy-saving business. All units, prepare for contact protocols. As Elena watched the newest refugees approach, she reflected on humanity's journey from feared plague species to galactic saviors. They had avoided the war for 150 years, but when it finally found them, they had ended it not through superior firepower, but through the uniquely human combination of chaos, creativity, and compassion. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would humanity. But that, Elena thought with satisfaction, was exactly how humans preferred it. Asterisk.